Warning: the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Warning: this program contains images of people who are deceased.
The Russian armed forces liberated Krasnoy in the DPR and improved the tactical situation along the front line in the Donetsk direction, Ministry of Defense. By t.me/r-venker. The Russian military command appears to be forming reserves capable of sustaining ongoing offensive operations in Ukraine, but these reserves are unlikely to be able to function as cohesive large-scale penetration or exploitation formations this year. Russian offensive tactics will likely increasingly pressure Ukrainian defenses as long as delays in Western security assistance persist. Russian forces conducted a larger series of missile strikes targeting Kyiv city on the night of March 20th to 21st. NATO Military Committee Chairperson Admiral Rob Bauer stated that neither Ukraine nor NATO prompted Russia to invade Ukraine and that Ukrainian forces' adaptations and innovations have in part changed modern warfare. The Russian Ministry of Defense, MOD, announced on March 21 that Vice Admiral Konstantin Kabantsov became acting commander of the Russian Northern Fleet. Bloomberg reported on March 20 that an unspecified source close to the Kremlin stated that the all-Russian pro-Ukrainian incursions into Belgorod Oblast are forcing the Russian military to divert forces from the front line to Belgorod Oblast, although ISW has not observed such claims. U.S. sanctions continue to influence the financial sector in post-Soviet countries, as two banks in Kazakhstan recently banned the use of Russia's Mir national payment system to prevent secondary sanctions. Russian forces recently made confirmed advances near Bakhmut and in east, left, Bank of Kherson Oblast amid continued positional engagements along the entire line of contact on March 21. Russian officials continue to highlight the work of Russia's Defense Industrial Base, DIB, in supporting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We do not report in detail on Russian war crimes because these activities are well covered in Western media and do not directly affect the military operations we are assessing and forecasting. We will continue to evaluate and report on the effects of these criminal activities on the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian population, and specifically on combat in Ukrainian urban areas. We utterly condemn Russian violations of the laws of armed conflict and the Geneva Conventions and crimes against humanity, even though we do not describe them in these reports. Russian main effort, Eastern Ukraine, comprised of two subordinate main efforts. Russian subordinate main effort number 1, capture the remainder of Luhansk Oblast and push westward into eastern Kharkiv Oblast and encircle northern Donetsk Oblast. Russian subordinate main effort number 2, capture the entirety of Donetsk Oblast. Russian supporting effort, Southern Axis. Russian air, missile, and drone campaign. Russian mobilization and force generation efforts. Russian technological adaptations. Activities in Russian-occupied areas. Ukrainian Defense Industrial Base efforts. Russian information operations and narratives. Significant activity in Belarus. Russian main effort, Eastern Ukraine. Russian subordinate main effort number 1, Luhansk Oblast, Russian objective, capture the remainder of Luhansk Oblast and push westward into eastern Kharkiv Oblast and northern Donetsk Oblast. Positional fighting continued along the Kupiansk-Stato-Kreminna line on March 21. Russian and Ukrainian sources stated that positional engagements occurred northeast of Kupiansk near Sinkivka, west of Kreminna near Terny and Yampolivka, and south of Kreminna near Zolotarivka and Bilohorivka, 12 kilometers south of Kreminna. Elements of the Russian GORB detachment and of the 2nd, 7th, 6th, 85th, and 123rd Motorized Rifle Brigades, all of the 2nd Luhansk People's Republic, LNR, AC, are reportedly operating in the Bilohorivka area. Elements of the 204th Akhmet Spetsnaz detachment are also reportedly operating near Bilohorivka. Russian subordinate main effort number 2, Donetsk Oblast, Russian objective, capture the entirety of Donetsk Oblast, the claimed territory of Russia's proxies in Donbass. Russian forces recently advanced west of Bakhmut amid continued positional fighting in the area on March 21. Geolocated footage published on March 21 indicates that Russian forces recently advanced north of Ivanivsk, west of Bakhmut. The Russian MOD claimed that Russian forces captured the Alabastrovo railway station east of Klishchivka, southwest of Bakhmut, but ISW has not observed confirmation of this claim. Positional fighting continued northwest of Bakhmut near Bodnivka, west of Bakhmut near Ivanivsk, southwest of Bakhmut near Klishchivka, and south of Bakhmut near New York. Elements of the Russian 106th Airborne (VDV) Division continue to operate northeast of Bakhmut near Soldar. The Russian MOD claimed that Russian forces captured Tonenk, west of Avdiivka, amid continued positional fighting west of Avdiivka on March 21. Russian millbloggers largely did not corroborate the MOD's claims, instead claiming that Russian forces advanced in or near Tonenk while capitalizing on gains near Orlivka, west of Avdiivka, on March 21. A Russian millblogger claimed that Russian forces control half of Berdikai, northwest of Avdiivka. ISW has not observed confirmation of these Russian claims. However, positional fighting continued northwest of Avdiivka near Berdikai, west of Avdiivka near Semenivka and Tonenk, and southwest of Avdiivka near Pervomaisk, Netilov, and Nevelsk. Elements of the Russian 74th Motorized Rifle Brigade, 41st Combined Arms Army, CAA, Central Military District, CMD, and of the 1453rd Motorized Rifle Regiment, 1st Donetsk People's Republic, DNR, AC, are reportedly operating near Berdikai. Positional fighting continued west and southwest of Donetsk City on March 21, but there were no confirmed changes to the front line. Positional fighting continued west of Donetsk City near Krasnohorivka and southwest of Donetsk City near Hierhivka, Novomykhailivka, and Vodiane. Elements of the Russian 238th Artillery Brigade, 8th CAA, Southern Military District, SMD, are reportedly operating near Krasnohorivka. Positional fighting continued near Staromayorsk and Uruzhain, both south of Velika Novosilka, in the Donetsk-Zaporizhia Oblast border area on March 21. Elements of the Russian 394th Motorized Rifle Regiment, 127th Motorized Rifle Division, 5th CAA, Eastern Military District, EMD, reportedly continue operating in the Donetsk-Zaporizhia Oblast border area. Russian supporting effort, Southern Axis, Russian objective, maintain frontline positions and secure rear areas against Ukrainian strikes. Positional engagements continued in western Zaporizhia Oblast on March 21, but there were no confirmed changes to the front line. Positional engagements continued near Robotyne and northwest of Verbov, east of Robotyne. Elements of the Russian 108th VDV Regiment, 7th VDV Division, reportedly continue operating near Verbov. Elements of the Russian 429th Motorized Rifle Regiment, 19th Motorized Rifle Division, 58th CAA, SMD, and 104th VDV Regiment, 76th VDV Division, are reportedly operating in the Zaporizhia direction. Russian forces recently made a confirmed advance north of Pidstepen, 4 kilometers south of the Dnipro River, in east-left Bank Kherson Oblast, although Russian forces likely did not make this advance within the past day. Positional engagements continued in East Bank Kherson Oblast, including near Kryinki, on March 21. A Russian mill blogger claimed that Ukrainian forces continue to operate in dacha areas near the Antonivsky roadway bridge, north of Oleshki. Elements of the Russian 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, Black Sea Fleet, reportedly continue operating near Kryinki. The Russian MOD claimed that Russian air defenses destroyed 3 Ukrainian drones over occupied Crimea on March 21. Russian air, missile, and drone campaign, Russian objective, target Ukrainian military and civilian infrastructure in the rear and on the front line. Russian forces conducted a missile strike against Mykolaiv city during the day on March 21. Ukraine's Southern Operational Command reported that Russian forces launched a ballistic missile from occupied Crimea and damaged an industrial enterprise. Russian mobilization and force generation efforts, Russian objective, expand combat power without conducting general mobilization. Russian officials continue to highlight the work of Russia's Defense Industrial Base, DIB, in supporting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu visited Russian DIB enterprises in Nizhny Novgorod Oblast on March 21. The general director of an unspecified Russian plant told Shoigu that the plant began mass-producing FAB-3000 aerial bombs in February 2024 and at least doubled its production of FAB-1500 and FAB-500 aerial bombs over the past year, all of which Russian forces likely further modify to use as glide bombs. The plant also reportedly increased its production of artillery and aviation weapons 5-fold over the past year. Shoigu visited another plant that produces artillery ammunition and claimed that Russia is producing enough artillery ammunition to supply the Russian military in Ukraine. Russian Security Council Deputy Chairperson Dmitry Medvedev also visited Russia's Tambov gunpowder plant and called on Russian DIB enterprises to work faster to support the Russian military in Ukraine. Russian technological adaptations, Russian objective, introduce technological innovations to optimize systems for use in Ukraine. Nothing significant to report. Ukrainian defense industrial efforts, Ukrainian objective, develop its defense industrial base to become more self-sufficient in cooperation with US, European, and international partners. ISW is not publishing coverage of Ukrainian defense industrial efforts today. Activities in Russian-occupied areas, Russian objective, consolidate administrative control of annexed areas, forcibly integrate Ukrainian citizens into Russian socio-cultural, economic, military, and governance systems. ISW is not publishing coverage of activities in Russian-occupied areas today. Russian information operations and narratives. Russian officials continued to threaten escalation as part of Kremlin efforts to constrain Western discussions about support for Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov claimed on March 20 in response to French discussions about possibly sending military personnel to Ukraine that sending foreign troops to Ukraine could lead to extremely negative, even irreparable consequences. Russia has not significantly responded to Western security assistance to Ukraine that Russia has previously labeled as significant escalations. Kremlin mouthpieces continue to criticize the Armenian government's interest in cooperation with the West as contrary to Armenian interests against the backdrop of deteriorating Russian-Armenian relations. A Kremlin-affiliated mill blogger claimed on March 20 that Armenia's increased cooperation with the European Union (EU) equates to a loss of Armenian sovereignty. Significant activity in Belarus, Russian efforts to increase its military presence in Belarus and further integrate Belarus into Russian favorable frameworks, and Wagner Group activity in Belarus. Nothing significant to report. Note: ISW does not receive any classified material from any source, uses only publicly available information, and draws extensively on Russian, Ukrainian, and Western reporting and social media, as well as commercially available satellite imagery and other geospatial data as the basis for these reports.